All right, so for the second talk of the day, I would like to introduce Curtis. Curtis is an avid hunter. He enjoys long walks on the beach. No, I'm just kidding.
Only with you. Only with you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I'll keep it short and sweet. Curtis and I met last year, and we ran into each other this year at the G1st conference, which was 90% stiffs. And luckily through Twitter, I found out he was there, and it was my saving grace. So I dragged him to all the vendor parties, got him very drunk, and convinced him to not only speak here, but help get us sponsored. So big round of applause for Curtis and helping be one of the awesome sponsors for SkyDogCon. Come on.
Thank you. So they've asked everybody to talk about a mentor. Thankfully, I remembered that part. I've had a lot in my life. There have been a lot of people who've given me great advice, and first and foremost is my dad. And if any of you attended my talk last year, you heard me talking about how your brain works when it's under stress. And the first person to ever teach me about that was my father, who is a physician in a hospital. This is a guy who could get woken up by the worst accidents in the frickin' world at like 3 in the morning, answer a question, and go right back to sleep. And that's a skill I wanted because I like to sleep. And so that's where a lot of that came from. And so my dad is probably the most influential mentor in my life, and was the beginning of a long road of teaching me how to listen to people and get great advice. And that's where a lot of my talks come from. So Insanely Great is my ideas of the human brain. If you attended my talk last year, you know I talk about the mostly hairless monkeys. That's you guys. Human beings tend to forget that they're giant primates. And because of that, they do very interesting things. So Insanely Great is this idea of not managing change, which we've all heard of, but leading change. I've coupled that up with an idea that we call Gaishido, which is get your shit done, that we're going to talk about a little bit. And finally, the last thing I want to talk about as part of this is it's called How to Stop Sucking and Be Awesome. To me, these three things combined when used in your life can help you do the things you want to get done. So I put this in here thinking, I should put in a parental advisor. I can be kind of blue. And then there was the talk yesterday where I swear to God he said fuck every other word. And I went, God, why did I keep this? It doesn't matter. These guys already know I'm going to cuss. It's over. So for those of you who don't know me, he introduced me. I'm Curtis Koenig. I'm the Senior Security Program Manager. I call myself a security minion. I work for Mozilla. If you haven't visited the photo booth, go down there. You can have an awesome sock puppet tell you things in your head. And you get great pictures with Mrs. SkyDogCon. So have a good time down there. I do work for Mozilla. For those of you who don't know, we make Firefox, the most awesome open source browser on the planet.
That thing's still around?
Yeah, it's still around. The Godzilla of search engines, we're still around, yeah. No, we are not going public. Everyone asks me that goddamn question.
You guys don't use the dyno anymore.
Actually, we do. The dyno is still the symbol of the foundation. And at Mozilla, I'm a security guy. So, haha. You've all seen Larry, which we all kind of find really interesting. He's like the crossing guard of bad shit on the internet. Like, oh, here you go. Go on by. So we plan to redesign him, and some of this is based on ideas that come out of this, your brain. Your brain is a very interesting organ. No one really spends a whole lot of time thinking about it except brain scientists. But if you think about it at the base of everything, that is everything you are, everything you ever will be, everything you will ever accomplish lives in this little pink organ between your ears, and hopefully you don't get so drunk that you kill all the brain cells at one of these cons. So the beginning question for all this is why? And why is because I like to ask why a lot. I tend to be an overly curious kind of guy. It's what got me into computer security. It's what got me into doing network stuff. It's what got me doing malware analysis and now doing security program management for Mozilla. Why do we do what we do? Why does it work that way? Can I change it? Why did this particular thing work the way? And being in science and does a lot of that. But at the root is that question. And no one has ever said it better than Neil deGrasse Tyson. At the end of the day, I want to know more about the world around it, and I want to help other people. That's really what drives me. And if you can get yourself into a mindset like this, you're going to find really interesting stuff. So change is a really interesting thing, and that's where I mentioned I want to start. Not managing it. We've all heard about managing it. We've all heard about the crappy books about moving someone's cheese. We've all seen the managerial crap that people try to throw at us for managing change. We all know change is going to happen. It happens all the frickin' time. If there is a constant in the universe, it is change. It is that simple. That little dichotomy there is that simplest thing. And you get it all the time. I'm willing to bet that someone in this room had a change in their team at work, or they moved from one place to another, or a child was born, or whatever the F happened. You bought a new car. It doesn't matter. Shit changes all the time. And if you're not recognizing that that change can be a powerful thing, you're giving up on a part of yourself that can be very powerful. If you're not investing in your own self-interest and your own growth, nobody else is going to, ever. You know, we talked about I can't remember his name, he was here last night talking about doing a startup. And I think that's a point that he missed, that if you're not taking the risk to invest in yourself for anything like that, no one else is going to do it either. So there's step one.
Billy Hoffman.
Thank you, Billy Hoffman, who was terribly entertaining and awesome. I've already mentioned this. Change is a fact of life. If you're alive, you're going to change. You do not look like you did 10 years ago. You probably don't even look like you did 2 years ago, especially at my age where we get rounder, which I'm fighting very hard. I've actually lost a bunch of weight this year. That was my change thing for this year. It has slowed down because I had a knee injury in June that has slowed me down, but I am determined to get down to 180 pounds. I started at 250 and I'm about 230 right now. So I decided for myself I was going to change something. That's my personal thing. For most people, most average people, change is a massive source of anxiety. They spend a ton of time worrying about it. They spend a ton of time worrying about, they're going to move my cube. Like, I could take my red stapler. I'm going to take my red stapler. I'm going to move the basement. We've all seen that guy. There's a ton of people who have their red stapler. Just a metric ton of people who worry about their fucking red stapler. That's not the important part. The flip side of that is an awesome tool for leadership. If you want to get stuff done, change is the way you can get stuff done. And in many areas of our lives, the pace at which change happens is increasing. And that's because of the crap that guys like us invent. The amount of knowledge, the amount of time it took human beings to double their knowledge was a little over 150 years between 1800 and 1950. Between 1950 and now, we have doubled the knowledge in the human race 4 times. So in the last 50 or 60 years, 4 times in what took us 150 years before that, and before that was somewhere in the order of 500 years, to double the amount of human knowledge. Last time I read a statistic on this, the study was that we were getting close to doubling the amount of knowledge within the human space every 2 years. That's a lot of information. And it's mostly made powerful by the internet and computers and people writing software and sharing that data or digging into data and finding new and interesting things. So there's, again, a huge amount of change that we have created in the computer industry. You have a choice in how you deal with change. You can fear it. You can resist the hell out of it. You can dig your feet in. You can fight it all the way. You can accept it. This is what most of your managers want you to do. They just want you to accept it and shut up and do whatever they tell you to do. It's better than fearing it. But really all you're doing is just sort of adapting and getting back into your comfort spot of change. The third choice you can do is lead it. You can take responsibility for it. You can actively look for change and say, hey, look, there's this really interesting thing here, or this thing is broken. I'm going to take it upon myself to change it, and I'm going to lead other people in following with me to change it. I'm not just going to, try and make it happen. I'm going to get them to come with me. I'm going to create a groundswell. It doesn't have to be big things either. The caveat emptor to this is that the only person you can force to change is yourself. But if you're leading it and you're being a model, other people will generally follow along. We're getting to a little bit of that too. So the first step, it goes back to what we started with. You know change is going to happen because it's happening all the time. It's happened your entire life. So anticipate it. Know that it's going to come. Know that it's going to happen again. Realizing this helps people look for effects that it has on their lives and explore opportunities for the result of that change rather than being afraid of it. Okay? We're looking for the positives here. And you've got to accept it. I know that was model number 2 up there and it wasn't the one I'm really advocating for, but you do have to accept it as part of being able to get to leading it. Okay? You can't just You can't just go, I'm going to lead this awesome change and go running into battle by yourself. Custer tried that. It didn't work so well for him either. He's kind of dead. But when you see it, you adapt to it. You know that it's coming. You know you've got to get ready for it. The more quickly you let go of the old way of doing stuff and accept it, the sooner you can enjoy what's going to happen next. You guys really like the Arduino hacking and all that kind of stuff? Really? There's no hardware hackers in the room? Are they all drunk? Are they still passed out? Was the party that good?
Yes, and yes.
Okay, I went to bed at 2 a.m. Shit, I went to bed too early. But think about it. There's a reason we get into this stuff. Because we like to take it apart. We like to change it. We like to fiddle with it. We like to see what it can do. And you run to your friends and go, look at the cool blinky light I added to my badge. We like change. This group especially likes change. Our problem, in my opinion, comes in how we communicate that to other people. And that's coming down the way. But in accepting it, you're looking for the advantages. You're looking for the consequences of not changing. Oh, my business could end. My job could end. I've been pretty lucky with change in my career. I started off doing desktop support, literally answering the phones and fixing shit.
What did you major in?
Microbiology. I have a BS in microbiology with minors in chemistry, math, computer science, and physics. And nobody would give me a job, even though I'd done computers since I was 7 years old. Instead, I got a master's degree, and then they offered me a job. I started answering the phones and fixing people's computers, but I had an interest in security, so I invested in myself. And I could see way back in 2000 that security was going to explode. And I was working at Microsoft, and I was already starting to yell about security when the memo from Bill Gates showed up. Your security's and the next thing I knew, I was on the security support team. And the next thing I knew after that, I was on the anti-malware team. The next thing I knew after that, I was on Microsoft's security team. And then I went, this is fucking crazy, I'm out of here. Thankfully, I landed at Mozilla a few years later. But by being able to look forward and see that this groundswell of change was coming in security set me up for what I was going to do in my future career. I started learning on my own. I could see that coming. You've got to do the same thing with the acceptance here. You've got to understand the consequences of not changing for me was like half the people I used to work with in desktop support are out of jobs because those jobs all moved to India. Shit happens. But, I was looking out and trying to convince other people that this was a good thing to do. Some of them came along with me. Some of them are still at Microsoft. So you've got to let go and move on. Great line, great movie. Enjoy the change. Change is a fabulous adventure if you let it be. If you stop worrying about it and you enjoy it, there's a lot of stuff that you can really love about it. And once it's occurred, we've already said this, it's going to fucking happen again. You can't get away with it. Like shit, it's going to happen again, or it's going to happen there, or it's going to happen because whatever. It just does. This is where leading change becomes more than managing change. You have to empower other people to come along with you. This is where leadership comes into this. It's easiest to lead change when you find other people around you who have the skills or the position or the power, something you need to make that thing happen. I hate to say the group of the willing or the coalition that we all heard about for years, in the last war, but that's essentially what you're doing. You're building a coalition of people that you're getting excited about the change and getting them to move forward with you. If you ever want to build a startup, this is the best way to do it. Get other people to do it for you. I mean, he mentioned about getting Amazon to get your servers or Google to do your email. He said, if you got some guy who's really awesome at PHP scripts, go get that guy. Get him excited about this new thing you want to build. Like, dude, you're going to get to write some awesome PHP. That's really what he cares about. Why not? Use that power of change. Build that team you want to have. The right people will help you achieve that. You've got to figure out how to pick the right people for your problem. That's not the easiest part. And then you're building relationships. That's really what this leads to. You build them through that shared experience. And once you've got a good team that has that shared experience, it becomes easier to do the next thing or iterate along what you're already doing. People in places, they're going to be somewhat reluctant sometimes, but that relationship that you have with them is what's going to pull them along. I love coming to these things and seeing the stuff that you guys do and getting to meet you and talk to you and have these relationships. Like, The only reason I got the gig last year is I was literally hanging out at DerbyCon. I was hanging out at DerbyCon, and SkyDog is sitting in the front of the room making keychains. You guys remember those things? I think I still got one. It's this little thing. Anybody got one of these? This is what he was making, little plastic keychains. This is all he was doing. And all they had was SkyDogCon and the date and a web address. That's it. I'm like, dude, that's really cool. Can I have one? He's like, sure. You know, I don't know SkyDog from anybody else, but I started chatting it up. I started building a relationship. And the next thing I knew, he's inviting me to come talk. I've never spoken at a con before, ever. And I don't know why the hell they chose it, but they stuck me after the keynote last year on day one. I had a great time doing it. I was nervous as all hell, but the relationship I had built with SkyDog, and then he introduced me to Mrs. SkyDog, and they introduced me to Carlo, and they introduced me to some ninja, and the next thing I knew, I had a bunch of friends who had alcohol, and it was fucking awesome. So relationships is what's going to drive that stuff. By just going up to SkyDog and saying, hey, what's that cool thing you have there? Started this snowball that puts me where I am here right now. Find interesting people and talk to them. They will lead you to interesting change. I'm probably going to end up being on staff next year because I think this is really cool and I want to be a part of that. Now, there's a really interesting story in Alice in Wonderland that's going to lead us to our next step. So Alice is going down the path, and she comes to the Cheshire Cat, and the Cheshire, she says, well, there's two paths here. Which one should I take? The Cheshire Cat says, well, where do you want to go? Alice says, I don't know where I want to go. And the cat says, then it doesn't matter. If you don't know where you're going, it really doesn't matter what the hell path you take to get there. So you've got to have an idea of the target you're getting at. When you start to lead change, you can't just go, I'm going to go change a bunch of shit. Everyone's going to go, who the fuck is that guy? Give him his red stapler and put him in the basement again. Please make him shut up. You got to have a compelling target you're aiming for. I want to do X. I want to, I have this little idea and I want to make it happen in this way. Or I want to change this thing because it fucking sucks. And we're going to get to talking about that too. This is really driven by what most people call a vision or a mission. You've got to have a target you're getting to. Obviously Mozilla's mission is sort of unique in the world in that we're the only browser manufacturer that doesn't give a shit about how much money we make. Not a damn little bit. Our goal is to protect the internet and the web as a resource for the user. We're not out to control it. We're not out to, monetize it. We're not out to turn it into an ad revenue stream in your email and on every search you ever do. Google. We are out to make the internet for you all, what users want. I can't tell you how often we get corporations, hey, we need a way to deploy Firefox in our environment. We need a way to control Firefox or Active Directory. And we're like, that's nice, you go build it. Because that's not what we do. That's not our thing. By staying on our mission is how we have survived for as long as we have and how we've continued to grow and look for change. Someone asked me recently, are you guys really upset you're not the #1 browser? No, we're pretty effing happy that there's more than one goddamn browser. Because when we started this, there was one, and there was Netscape, and they got kind of fucked, and then we became open source, and whoa, wow, look at what the hell happened. Now there's like 10 browsers. At least the internet isn't controlled by one hegemony, which was our big worry. But that ability to look forward to change and have that mission is also what's leading us to do things like Firefox OS. Have you guys heard of this? We're building a phone. We're building an open source phone completely based on open standards, HTML5 and CSS. You write all your apps in HTML5, CSS. The entire UI is HTML5, CSS. The phone is designed to be hacked the moment you take it out of the box. We're launching it probably early next year, last I heard, in Brazil first, because we think the emerging markets are the place to be. We're not aiming to compete with Google. We're not aiming to compete with Apple. We want to bring the power of the web to the people who need it most at a cost price point for them that they can afford, and in a way that doesn't take their experience of the web and force them into a box that's owned by somebody else. We see the mobile market, because of our vision of an open web, as contracting the web into how Apple wants you to see the web, or how Google wants you to see the web, or how Microsoft wants you to see the web. We see that as a big problem. So our vision, our mission, our target for the open web includes the mobile platform. So we have to build it. If you're interested in it, talk to me more after. I'll be happy to give you what information I can. But it guides where we're going. And the same's got to be true for you if you're going to lead change. You've got to have a target. Visions help us visualize the end result. I already mentioned Mozilla's mission, but there's some other great missions in the world. Think about JFK in the 1960s. The guy gets up and says, you know what? We're going to put a fucking man on the moon, and we're going to bring him home. Russia, have a nice day. And everyone, the guys are going, who the hell's going to build this goddamn rocket? 10 years later, Neil Armstrong, I'm on the moon, dude, yeah. Powerful visions can change things. At the same time, Martin Luther King gets up, and we all know the words, I have a dream. He had a vision of the future to change a society. Think about how big that is. Just in a little tiny way. I'm going to change the whole fucking country. And he goes off and he does it. Because he had that vision, because he could compellingly tell people about it, because he could inspire them to get there as a leader. We all have that power if we choose to have it. And the thing that makes both of those interesting is the next thing you have to have, which is a sense of urgency. You have to be able to explain to people why this change at this time matters. It could just be, hey, our HR system sucks. We can't get valuable candidates. We're losing to our competitor, if that's what matters to you. It could be, I'm tired of working for the man and I'm going to build the coolest Arduino blinky light add-on ever. Whatever it is, you've got to have that sense of urgency. You've got to know that it has to get done. It can't just be, oh, there's a neat Tinker project in my garage, okay? If that doesn't make sense to you, I don't know how else to tell you. It's got to matter now. Great ideas, some really fucking great ideas sat on the shelf. Anybody know when TV was invented? What year? Really? You guys don't know when TV was invented? What? The first probably were late 1800s, but realistically it's targeted around 1930. When did a television become widespread? Yeah, after World War II. How far after World War II? A little further. How about the mid-1950s? 20 years. Or if, the 1800s with Philo Farnsworth, with just in the idea in his head, right, but 1930 to 1950, 1930 to 1950 is 20-something years. So yeah, World War II is in the middle. So it took at least 20 years from the first viable model to like what we call the 50% mark, when 50% of people have this thing. How about barcodes? When was that invented? A little earlier, actually. In the mid-1950s, when TVs got popular, barcodes were invented. Do you know what made them popular? Walmart. Until Walmart in the 1980s started building an automated tracking system for everything they fucking sold and wanted to know where it was, nobody gave a shit. The minute Walmart said, you're going to put fucking barcodes on shit because we want to know where it is and how much we have, boom, they're everywhere. Somebody had a compelling urgency, like, hey, I want to sell my shit. I'm putting barcodes on it. Aircraft carriers. Aircraft carriers sat out. We'd been monkeying around with them since the beginning of flight. But until the Japanese destroyed our battleship fleet at Pearl Harbor, nobody cared about aircraft carriers. Now they are by far the dominant thing on the sea. And even they're starting to wane now because of digital technology and drones and all this other stuff we can build. Aircraft carriers took like 50 years. Cell phones, that rate of change, cell phones took, I think it's 15 years to get to a 50% saturation point. Smartphones took less than 2 years. You can get 50% saturation pretty quick now. So again, change taking off. The last thing that this boils down to is communication. You've got your sense of urgency. You know where you want to go. You figured out the people you want to get there with. You know the change you want to make. Now you've got to communicate it. You've got to be able to communicate that urgency, that vision. You've got to make them understand that this thing is necessary and possible, and it's got to be simple. Best quote in the world. If you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough. Albert Einstein. Great fucking idea. If you can't explain it to someone, the old elevator pitch, in 5 minutes, you don't understand your idea well enough, go back and make sure you understand it some more. It's got to be simple. Tell them with metaphors, analogies, multiple forms. People learn things in all kinds of different ways. And repeat it ad fucking nauseum, as you've noticed me doing already in this presentation. I'm repeating it, and I'm trying to give it to you in different ways. And then lead it by example. You've got to walk the walk. If you're telling people, we're going to do this, and then you do the exact opposite, they're going to immediately ignore you. It doesn't matter how well you said it. It doesn't matter how good your vision is. Nothing else matters. What you do speaks louder than any words you will ever say. Okay? You've got to also be able to explain some of the inconsistencies that might come up. Anybody ever heard of Randy Pausch? Wow, you guys don't read much. Oh, there's one hand in the back. Thank God. I love Randy. I discovered him by accident. A friend sent me a YouTube link of his last lecture. If you've never seen it or never read the book, fucking pick it up. This guy was a genius in our industry. This guy worked on 3D virtual reality, taught at CMU, but beyond that, had incredible insight into human behavior and ideas. People are going to resist you. There are going to be walls. They are the test for how badly you want to get something done. If you give up at the first sign of difficulty or hardness, then the game is over. Some people in large organizations just aren't going to change, or they're not going to buy in. They don't really fucking care. They're going to keep their cheese in their little drawer and their red stapler, and they're going to burn down the building eventually. Who knows? Milton's a dangerous little character. You've got to move past them. It's going to hurt sometimes. There are going to be people you really love, and you're going to say, look, you've got to change. They're going to say no. You're going to have to go without them. If you're really lucky, they will see everyone else around them changing and join in. But there are occasions when you're going to have to leave people behind. It's a sucky thing to have to do, but if you want to succeed, sometimes you got to do it. They're just not going to change. They're going to remove themselves from the situation. The situation is going to move on without them, but you've got to make a decision how important it is. It happens in groups more often than anything else, especially when you're trying to reshape groups. Culture now becomes a huge part of this. Okay, if you're starting with no change culture right now, you're going to have to go through all 6 steps to get here, to get up to a culture. Once you've built a culture of change, you can skip a lot of the early stuff. You will have proven a track record of being able to do this. You will now have incremental goals. It's visible. People see it for themselves, and it's not just hype. They know you can do it. It's unambiguous. There are real wins with this stuff. And it's clearly related to whatever it is you're trying to change. All right, so now we've talked about how change works, and we're going to get into the last 2 pieces. But before we get into them, there's a very important point here. And because you are here, you are already doing this. If you want to be good at anything, you must learn for the rest of your life. You can't just assume you have all the tools you're ever going to have and that you're done. This is a lifelong process. Read books, go to cons, take shit apart, break it, build it back together, take risks, learn something. Take risks, build humble self-reflection, solicit ideas from others. Be open to new ideas. If you really want to continue to be successful in whatever it is you want to do, this set of skills is what's going to get you there. It was interesting yesterday that somebody mentioned Steve getting really lucky. I honestly don't think Steve was all that lucky. I think Steve was prepared for change. And these are 2 what I'm calling examples out of our industry. Steve on the left, when he came back to Apple, Apple had a big fucking pile of products. And he came in and he says, you know what we're going to do? We're going to change the whole thing we do. We're going to do 3 things and 3 things only. We're going to concentrate on iTunes and our mobile music platform. And we're going to build this thing called an iPod. We're going to revitalize our Mac line. And we're going to focus on services. All this other shit we do, it's over. It's done. Gone. The company, at the time, a lot of people were like, oh, Apple's fucking over. It's going to goddamn fail. Microsoft has beaten them. Steve comes in and says, nope, we're going to change the whole ballgame, and now they're the most successful company on the planet from deciding to do 3 things. If you don't know the guy on the right, that's Jeff Atwood. Does anybody here not read Coding Horror? Not Coding Horror, Coding Horror. If you write any sort of code and you're not reading his blog, you're missing some of the most insightful writing I've ever read in the tech industry. He is also the guy behind Stack Exchange. Love him. He's a great guy. And one of his concepts is what we're going to talk about here in just a sec. And that's his concept. Stop sucking and be awesome. We all know we suck at something. So there are 3 steps to stop sucking and being awesome. The first one is embrace the suck. Understand that there is something you suck at and go and fucking change it. Okay? Everyone in this room has something they suck at. I can be a bit of a dick around my house sometimes when things don't go my way at work. I'm working on that because I don't like bringing bad news home to my wife. It makes sex at night really fucking hard. I like getting laid. I have 3 kids. It's kind of obvious I like getting laid. And I like my kids. I don't want them to learn the bad habit of, oh, when shit goes wrong at work, Dad comes home and kicks the fucking dog. That's just not cool.
You kicked my dog.
Yeah. There you go. The reality is, why do things suck? Because our expectations don't match our reality. I can't figure out what I need to do. This thing is unnecessarily frustrating or complex. It breaks all the goddamn time. Whatever, it's so ugly I want to vomit if you're a designer. It doesn't map to my understanding of the universe. This is really what this thing sucks means. There's a whole litany of things there that there's a mismatch between what I think is the true thing and what is actually happening. Okay, so first off, we have to say, okay, suck is there. And as part of suck, we have to understand failure is a good thing. If you're not trying hard enough to fail, you're not trying hard enough, okay? Failure will teach you a shit ton. I can't tell you how many times I've fallen down and failed. But being the science background I have, I get back up, I look at what the hell went wrong, I figure out whether the failure was me or my experiment or what I was trying to get done, and I move to the next thing. But if you're not risking enough, if you're not going to do the things that scare you, you're not trying hard enough. The second part of being awesome is doing it in public. This is public. I'm not going to say this presentation is perfect. I can probably do it better. There's probably some suck in this presentation. However, I'm getting up in public and I'm telling you guys what I'm going to do. And I'm going to get feedback from you and I'm going to make that better. Weight loss is a great one. The more people I tell that I'm going to fucking lose weight, the more likely it is I'm going to actually fucking lose weight. Because now I have other people looking at me going, he's a fucking 3 cheeseburger asshole over there. He says he's losing weight. Someone's going to come up to me and go, why eating goddamn 3 cheeseburgers? I don't anymore. I heard that. But communicating it to people causes our behavior to change. You've got to tell people, again, this goes back to that communication thing and leading change. You've got to tell people about it. It doesn't just magically happen because it's in your head. Now, you got to pick stuff that matters. And more importantly, stuff that not only matters, if it's a personal change for you, that's fine. But that stuff otherwise has to matter to other people. And this gets us into Gaishido, getting shit done. So Gaishido is the art of getting shit done. There's a guy at Mozilla named Pascal Finette who started this, I think, a little while ago, or at least he's evangelizing it at Mozilla. And this is how you decide what the important stuff is, okay? Relentless focus. Only about 10% of what you do really goddamn matters. The rest of it is automatic, on autopilot, reading your email, responding to the office troll, driving to work, buying your coffee. It doesn't fucking matter. What is it that you do that provides value? Relentlessly focus on that thing. That's the stuff you want to change. That's the stuff you want to make better. Consistency, while boring, is good. Okay? Consistency is effing awesome. Do the right things when you find them over and over and over and over. Like SkyDogCon. Just keep doing them over and over and over. You'll form habits, and habits will make things that are hard become effortless. No bullshit. You cannot lie to yourself. You cannot lie to others. Be brutally honest and transparent in everything you do. It's that simple. No meetings. This is not AA. Meetings come in only 2 forms. Standing and social. Standing, social. Standing meetings, or social meetings, I should say. Let's start with there. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, coffee. You're going to sit down. You're going to have a meal with somebody, dinner or drinks. If it's not one of those things, don't goddamn sit down. People get lazy in a meeting. There's a reason meetings last an hour with people sipping their coffee, because they're fucking comfortable. Try this sometime. Go to your office, Sneak into the meeting room before the meeting and take all the chairs. You will have the fastest staff meeting of your entire life because they want to get shit done and go back to their desk. Follow up. Don't ever make other people wait for you to do your part of the job. Okay? Ever. Be the guy who gets it done. And don't be an asshole. You don't have to be a dick to get things done. You don't have to be an asshole to get things done. Help other people. Find the stuff that matters to them. Adrian, where's my audio?
Did it hook you up? This sucks.
You're all on the process of waking
You hooked to these copper lights.
Should be.
You're ready
There we go.
to wake up, you're going to wake up. And if you're not ready, you're going to stay pretending that you're just a little, poor little me. And since you're all here and engaged in this sort of inquiry and listening to this sort of lecture, I assume that you're all on the process of waking up. Or else you're teasing yourselves with some kind of flirtation with waking up, which you're not serious about. But I assume maybe you are, not serious but sincere, that you are ready to wake up. So then, when you're in the way of waking up and finding out who you really are, what you do is what the whole universe is doing at the place you call here and now. You are something the whole universe is doing in the same way that a wave is something that the whole ocean is doing. The real you is not a puppet which life pushes around. The real deep down you is the whole universe. So then, when you die, you're not going to have to put up with everlasting non-existence, because that's not an experience. A lot of people are afraid that when they die, they're going to be locked up in a dark room forever. And sort of undergo that. But one of the most interesting things in the world, this is a yoga, this is a way of realization. Try and imagine what it will be like to go to sleep and never wake up. Think about that. Children think about it. It's one of the great wonders of life. What will it be like to go to sleep and never wake up? And if you think long enough about that, something will happen to you. You will find out, among other things, that it'll pose the next question to you. What was it like to wake up after having never gone to sleep? That was when you were born. You see, you can't have an experience of nothing. Nature abhors a vacuum. So after you're dead, the only thing that can happen is the same experience, or the same sort of experience as when you were born. In other words, we all know very well that after people die, other people are born. And they're all you. Only you can only experience it one at a time. Everybody is I. You all know you're you. And wheresoever beings exist throughout all galaxies, it doesn't make any difference. You are all of them. And when they come into being, that's you coming into being. You know that very well. Only you don't have to remember the past. In the same way, you don't have to think about how you work your thyroid gland or whatever else it is in your organism. You don't have to know how to shine the sun. You just do it. Like you breathe. Doesn't it really astonish you that you are this fantastically complex thing? And that you're doing all of this and you never had any education in how to do it?
There's your profound non-hacker moment at this con. So that's part of my challenge to all of you. Find the thing in your life that matters and go fucking make it better by changing it. You know, lots of guys got up here and they talk about Sun Tzu. I like Miyamoto Musashi. Do nothing that is of no use. If it doesn't matter, why are you doing it? Why? And then think lightly of yourself and deeply of the world. Find what matters to other people and help that be better. And at the end of the day, the only person you can ever be better than is the person you were yesterday. Questions, comments, smart remarks? Wow, I dumbfounded them. Huh? It's not your dog. He's still my dog. If you want any of the stuff that I did in this presentation, I'm going to throw them up here so they get recorded. The video's off of YouTube. It's the guy you heard speaking was Alan Watts. Gaishido can be found at gaishido.com. It's literally it's one page. It's those bits and pieces I showed you. Stop Sucking and Be Awesome. He has an entire presentation of it, mostly talking about how you do it in the software industry. He's got his slides up there, and you can actually watch a video of him doing it. This presentation at its core comes from John Cotter. He wrote a great book called Leading Change, and another one called Our Iceberg is Melting, which is an example of that. And of course, Randy Pausch and Miyamoto Musashi. If there are no questions.
Nobody has any questions?
They're either still hungover, asleep, or I just bombed bad.
Or you've just blown their minds.
I'm still trying to process it all.
I've got a question
I'll
for
be
you.
here all weekend.
Curtis, I have a question.
Yeah.
In thinking about trying to make a decision to change your life, and I'll use myself as an example. I've been supporting the same client across 2 contracts for going on 7 years. It almost makes me sad to think about how much time I've devoted to this one federal agency, especially because they like to touch people every time they travel.
That's the only way to get any attention, so thank you.
The way that I have always thought about it in terms of when do I see the signs for change is that, there are certain indicators that I look for, and I call them just universal signs, right? Mm-hmm. There are certain things that if you, not only in your career but in life, that if you don't immediately identify as this is an indicator that the universe is trying to tell you that you need to now change and move on, you've been doing this for too long, that you will ultimately suffer the consequences for not having either identified it or, for even worse, having identified it and made the conscious choice not to change. So extending from that, how do you feel is the best way to identify where that anxiety comes from? Going back to your slide about how thinking about change causes a lot of anxiety. Like, would individuals would you suggest that individuals take some time to really pinpoint the source of their anxiety?
That's part of it. We've talked about mentors a lot this weekend, and I think that's a good place to start. Get yourself an awesome mentor, someone you trust, someone you can talk to, who you can bounce ideas off of. Because what happens between your ears is a closed box. It's not going to get you a whole lot of places. Find people to talk to, bounce ideas off of them. For me, the litmus test of when to change has always been when I get up in the morning and I go, fuck, when can I get back in bed? That's a time when shit's got to change. I'm really lucky right now. I have the best job I've ever had with, in my opinion, the smartest people in the world. I feel like an idiot every day. That's awesome. To me, that's the best place in the world. And I'm lucky that I got it. I worked a job I really hated for 4 years. And I worked my ass off to build skills in those 4 years that allowed me to get where I am now. Because every morning I got up and went, when can I go back to bed? Literally. If you're not getting up in the morning going, woo! Something's wrong. Again, this is that moment of Zen. If you haven't figured out I'm a Zen guy. If you don't like what's happening in your life, change it. You're the only one that can.
Now, I came in on the tail end of your talk, so
Yeah.
apologize.
That's all right.
But is this something, like, speaking from my point of view, is this something that you can really get and understand when you're in your 20s or even in your 30s?
Yes. Believe it or not, I teach this to teenagers. I teach this to teenagers.
I would have looked at it and thought it was shit when I was in my 20s and 30s. Honestly.
Depending on how you, and I'll tell you, you're probably right, and it's probably how you got presented to it. But one of the things I catch a lot of shit for working at Mozilla and being in the Valley is that I do a lot with the Boy Scouts of America. I don't always agree with everything they have to say, but I do agree with their mission of giving young people the skills to be successful in their lives. And I'm part of a leadership course. Believe it or not, the guy sitting on the couch over there, he's running the course. I'm his mentor this year. He's going to run a course to teach 80, 13 to 18-year-olds this kind of stuff. And they get it. They go back and they rebuild their troops and their crews, and they change things that they don't like. We teach them how to manage conflict. We teach them how to find a vision that they can believe in and communicate to other people. We teach them to communicate. So this is a little tiny part. Yes, this piece all by itself makes a whole lot of sense to adults. For youth, 15, 18, 20, they need the whole package. And we give that to them. So yes, they can absorb this when presented in a way that they understand. That goes back to the communication thing. Say it often, say it in multiple ways, and say it in ways that your audience understands.
And I think that would have been my problem up until probably my mid-30s, because I would have looked at that and thought, oh, this is just another one of those dumbasses up there just lecturing at me.
But does the dumbass lecturing at you do what he says he's going to do, or not?
Yeah, that's exactly the point. That was my perception of listening to this sort of stuff when I was younger would have been just like, oh, okay, that sounds good, and then just blow it off. But I had to reach a certain age to where it really made sense and sink in.
And it varies from person to person. But yeah, I'm the weird guy who gets up here and tells you to go change your life at a HackerCon.
I just want to touch on, piggyback what he said. It might have been a generation change, because like right now we're scared to death because bachelors are worth shit, and you have to have masters to do anything, and so the road's always changing on us. Before it seemed simple in my parents' generation, but like I haven't heard a lot of positive comments, but like I'm here ready to go to work right now on a Saturday after your comment, and I thought it was awesome. So
Thank you.
keep up the good work.
Yeah, find stuff that matters and just go do it. You know, you mentioned about a master's degree. The thing that's stunning to me right now is how the barrier to education is lowering drastically. Khan Academy, or I can't remember what the other one is. There is a metric ton of awesome content. You can practically get a computer science degree from MIT for free because they put everything they do online. If you don't want to go to college, don't. If you're smart enough to figure it out online and read a book and build a company, go do it. Just do it. Stop worrying about it. Someone will pay you. There's enough dumb people with a lot of money, I promise you. It's stunning how they got that much money sometimes, but you can do amazing things if you choose to do it. I hate it. I almost worry when I give some of these talks and things like this that I sound like a motivational speaker. But this is what gets me up in the morning, is helping other people realize their own power, that they can change the world. I mean, look at the guy who did Khan Academy. He started out because all he wanted to do was get on YouTube and help his niece in Alabama figure out her algebra and calculus. And the next thing he knew, 8 million people were watching his videos. And he turned around and built a company that doesn't make a dollar. It's all open source. I mean, I honestly don't know how he gets his money. And his mission is very simple: a world-class education for free for everyone. Think about that for just a minute. 10 years ago, if you wanted this kind of education, you shelled out a whole bunch of money and you went to a university. Now you sit down at your computer at home and turn on a video, and you can learn anything. So if you're not taking advantage of that, you're selling yourself short. It's just that simple. All right, I'm out of time. So if you want to find me, I'll be around.